guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Why There Are Weird Slow Cars All Over Sweden. So this is the first time that I'm hearing about this. Apparently they're like all cars in Sweden are slow. Although it says weird slow cars, so maybe it's just not a sort of, it's not widespread in all like Swedish towns. Maybe it's just like there are apparently some cars that are outliers and they are very slow. Why? I don't know, they drive slow. Maybe it's not the car, maybe it's the driver. I don't know. Like, isn't Volvo a Swedish company? Volvo's like are pretty famous, so I would assume, they're pretty good cars and they go fast. So, they go boom boom. So, I don't know. So this apparently is a thing. I can't wait to know more about this. So let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
Okay, today's topic might be a bit unexpected, but
sure,
we have to talk about Swedish traffic.
How different could it be? A lot, probably.
Just a few months back, I spent a few weeks in Scandinavia. I went from Germany to Lapland and back, so I spent many days on
a car? Can't you do that? No, right? No, because there's like, Denmark, like it's separated from mainland Europe, right? Right?
roads. And
there's a bridge, probably there's a bridge.
Most of these days in Sweden. And I noticed a few weird things along the road.
I'm scared.
For example, this
weird?
beautiful landmark, which is obviously a cheese slicer. Why Sweden?
I love this. I know it's kind of weird, but it just tells me that their culture appreciates like good cheese. So, I love it.
Why? But I also noticed a few things on the road itself. First of all, every second person in Sweden obviously drives a Volvo.
I was right, okay.
Every third person in Sweden obviously drives a vintage car. And
Why?
I don't mean like 20, 30.
Why is it obvious that they drive vintage cars? Are they because they're cheap? They don't want to upgrade to newer cars?
40-year-old cars. No, I mean really old American
and they're
vintage
American
cars. Like
to me, the most surprising thing about this is they're American cars. Like Ford, maybe Toyota. No, I don't know, because he said vintage. Actually, vintage. I think it's just like Ford.
This one, for example, I saw in the town of Gränna in southern Sweden. But the third thing I noticed is
a Cadillac. That was a Cadillac, right?
Actually, the most interesting and the most funny thing, because I've never seen something like that in other European countries before. If you drive through Sweden from time to time,
do people have? I think when I think of vintage cars and people like owning vintage cars, they're even like for I don't know, they're for model, not model. They're collecting, like they're collectors, so they're not actually driving around much in those cars.
There will be a situation where you will get stuck in a traffic jam, and the reason for this traffic jam is always the same. It's a super weird looking, slow driving car that has no license plate on its back, but a huge warning.
Do not pass.
Those strange cars are all over Sweden. Some of them are super noisy, some of them are also a bit smelly, some of them have like weird
I'm concerned about the smell, because if you're inside your car and you're smelling the other car, what does it smell? What does it smell?
Decorations and lighting and stuff, but all of them are driving super.
Is it to control traffic, actually?
Super slow. So I was wondering, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
What's the story behind those weird, slow driving cars, and why is there obviously such a hype about them in Sweden? Well, let's find out.
Please tell me.
If you thought German people, like I am, have a weird obsession for cars, well, you might be right, but I think the Swedish car culture is even more interesting. The reason why there are so many Volvos on the road, for example, is quite obvious. Volvo is a Swedish company, so it's by far the best.
It's the equivalent of saying like BMWs and Mercedes in Germany.
Best-selling car brand in Sweden with 52,000 sold cars in 2020. Volkswagen is only on number 2 with
That's just over there, right? Because that seems like a very like low amount.
42,000, and Kia on number 3 with 25,000 sold cars.
Kia
The
also
reason for the
Swedish.
vintage car hype in Sweden is a bit more interesting. After the Second World War, the Swedish government imported many vehicles from the US to meet the demand for cars in the country. In the 19th and 20th century, there were also many Swedish emigrants that came to the US and who supplied relatives with vehicles from abroad. Those
the US,
cars
okay.
are still driving around on the streets today, and especially if you drive through Sweden on the weekends, you almost feel a bit like you're in a different
Oh my god, I want that pink car so badly.
time zone or something. But, well, the most interesting thing is in fact the hype behind those weird, slow driving cars in Sweden. So let's check out the story behind them.
But the cars are not old.
Let's go back to the 1930s. At that time, there was a great need for agricultural machines in Sweden, but only a few farmers could actually afford them. So the Swedish government had an idea that obviously no other country had at that time, and an idea that still has impact today.
What?
The Swedish government created the possibility of converting old, ordinary cars into tractors. And, well, that's what the farmers
How old could they have been if it was the 1930s? I think the oldest car was like 30 years old at that point. So how old could it be?
did. This is how such a converted car looks like a strange mixture of a car and a truck. The
the other-
farmers started to
The black one, I didn't think that. It's like normal looking a little. This one's just weird.
build those vehicles from material that was lying around on the farms anyway, and soon those strange cars also got a name. They were called EPA Traktor, or EPA tractor translated, because EPA at that
What
time
is
was a
that?
Swedish cheap department store. So EPA Traktor means something like cheap tractor.
Okay,
There were a few
it's like the name brand, like the generic like brand that you get at a supermarket, and people are like, "Oh, that's the cheap option."
requirements that had to be taken to convert a car into a tractor. For example,
I think like was it? I think all the cars maybe had like the mechanic was a little bit easier to work with, and it was more adaptable. I don't think you can do that with a modern car.
the rear axle of the vehicle was not allowed to be sprung. The tractors were only allowed to have one row of seats. They had to have a loading area
Makes
and a
sense.
trailer coupling, and the engine
Wonder if
output
this-
had to be throttled. But with everything else, the farmers could be as creative as they wanted to be. So in the 1930s
Why do the farmers need to be creative? I mean, good for them, but it's not a necessity.
and 40s, those EPA tractors became really popular on Swedish farms. And for many, many years, they did their job really, really well.
I think it's funny because it's like a truck is basically whatever you want it to be. So it's like, sure, whatever.
However, in the 1950s, the hype around those EPA tractors slowly subsided.
Because
the prices
people were
for real agricultural
less?
machinery were slowly falling, and more farmers could afford a real tractor. So the EPA
Like we're out of the trenches now. We can afford it. Well, we can afford an actual truck.
tractor slowly died. But well, as you might know, every huge hype sooner or later will have a comeback. And that
True.
happened in the 1960s.
It only took 10
EPA
years.
tractor that was actually used as an agricultural machine now was used by the farmers' kids. The
do
reason for
what?
that has something to do with the Swedish traffic law. In Sweden, you are allowed to drive such a slow-driving vehicle like the EPA Traktor at the age of 15. A few decades ago, it was even allowed to drive such a car at the age of 14 if you were living on a farm. So what happened was, for many young
I'm trying to think of like how young is it actually? 14 and 15. It's young. I would say it's young.
people, the EPA Traktor became a symbol of freedom, since there was
How much freedom can you get if like I think you're riding a bike, you'll be faster.
no real public transport in the countryside. Many farmers' kids started to use those machines to drive to school or to meet with friends.
On one hand, good. I thought public transport was good in Sweden, or maybe it wasn't back in those days. But I think it's funny because it's like I have to wake up at 5 a.m. so I can go to school at 7 because it took me 2 hours to actually go there.
Unfortunately, the Swedish government didn't really like this trend. There were a
Why?
few politicians that saw those EPA tractors as a safety issue, and there
they
were
weren't
also
safe?
a few teenagers that caused accidents with those machines. So in
Okay, so it was young.
1975, the EPA tractor finally was forbidden and the dream of freedom was over.
It was like,
In
yeah,
fact, there were a lot of protests at that time in Sweden because of this rule, and over the years, the law changed many times. First, people were told to scrap their vehicles. Later, the government decided that people could keep them, but it was not possible to register new tractors anymore.
That makes
And in
sense.
the end, finally, a new rule was passed that was satisfactory for everybody. The rule of the so-called A tractor. In general,
That's the
the A
rule?
tractor is basically the same as the EPA tractor. It's still a converted car, but with a huge difference. From now on, a warning sign at the back of the car was mandatory, and the A tractor is only allowed to drive 30 kilometers per hour. And yep, you're absolutely right. Those are the cars we still see on Swedish roads today.
Speechless. 30 is nothing. That's a suburban road. Not even that. How are you driving an avenue like at these? Like, no, please go faster.
The funny thing about all this is, this EPA or A tractor thing exists for many years now in Sweden. But the real hype around those machines didn't start in the 70s or 80s or 90s. No, it started last year. And the reason for that is another change in the
Oh.
Swedish law.
Okay, I was thinking people just were like, oh, we're into like something vintage that happened 40 years ago.
From now on, it's not only allowed to convert old cars into a tractor, from now on, it's also allowed to convert newer models and also cars with automatic transmission.
Okay,
In
now
the
it's a
past,
free-for-all.
The upper gears of those old vehicles had to be blocked or a reduction gear was built in at great expense. Today, with newer models, the maximum speed can also be limited electronically. So what happened was, within just 1 year, the registration numbers of those A tractors rose by 27%.
Now everyone wants one.
36,000 people in Sweden are driving those cars meanwhile.
I wonder, like, it's a fashionable thing, but it's not practical. Come on, it's 30 kilometers. Like, you're doing this because you're like as a hobby or something.
And if you saw mostly converted old Volvos in the past, meanwhile you also see BMWs, Mercedeses, Audis, and there are also 76 Porsches registered for minors in Sweden. Meanwhile, the hype
I get it's a loophole, but it's like, do it, like, convert a Porsche into one of these. I think that's a crime, right?
around those vehicles has become a real youth culture. If you drive through Sweden, especially
Okay, it's
in
just like a teen
evenings,
thing.
you will see a lot of teenagers at gas stations where they are meeting with those cars and where they tinker with the car. Many of them also decorate their cars in an extraordinary way, for example with tree-shaped air fresheners or stickers. Of course, not everybody's happy with this development. Some say that
Other drivers?
those cars are still safety issues because they are driving so slow and
Correct.
other cars always have to overtake them, and that might cause accidents.
I thought the little like warning sign was for you to like did not pass because well, there was would be crazy. But obviously, if you sometimes you can't pass them. So yes.
Others say those cars are still too fast for teenagers, but some also say it's actually the best thing that could happen to Swedish teenagers because long before they have their driving license, they actually learn how to drive safely on Swedish streets. So
Yeah.
it could also have a positive
I think it's good for them. It's just not good for the rest of the population.
effect. I'm not really sure. What do you think about all this? Maybe write it down in the comment. Should this regulation also be possible in other countries?
Absolutely not.
Would you buy an A tractor if you would have the chance? Let me know in the comments and maybe we can discuss this topic a little bit. So, and that was my story about the EPA tractor and the A tractor in Sweden. I hope you learned something. If you did, then please leave a thumbs up. You can also hit the subscribe button of this channel so you won't miss any upcoming video. And if you like to support me and my work, then please check out the Patreon link in the description. So far, have a safe journey and see you next time.
I think, like, would I buy one of these? I do not think so. I don't know, like, I would have to really think about this, true. Like, I'm not seeing the why would I buy this? I think because unless you're a teen with like a very specific sort of like mindset of this is the only, like, the law is the only law that allows me to own a car and drive within the law. You know, I can see why teens are like, it's all the rage. But as an adult, like, I don't know, why would you want to drive a car that's like so incredibly slow? It's like, come on, it's just like very slow. I like good for them on one hand, it's like good for Swedish teenagers, they have this great, it seems like also because for what I could understand, like you also work on your car, right? So it's not as if I buy my car or this just like an old family car that's just like rusting over there. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna fix it up. But then I have to fix it myself, right? Or maybe with some friends, or maybe I don't know, some family. But it's just like all like in-house. It's not like I'm taking it to a mechanic and I'm like, sure, I'm paying money for them to like fix it and convert this into a truck. No, it's not. I don't think that's sort of like the case. Like it's more about like you fixing your own car, like that culture of like, yeah, I'm fixing my car. Maybe I'm getting help, outside help, but it's all within like friends and family that are sort of like collaborating in this. And it's not just like, it's not like you're taking your car to a shop and they're like fixing it. So in one hand, good. And also I think that's a good thing because it teaches them how, I don't know, responsibility and also how to, I don't know, like, it's just like, it's a good hobby to have. Like, it seems like something positive and, you know, it keeps them like out of like other vices maybe. So I think that's on one hand, like, I think that I find it cool, like, great. However, and you know, I don't mind them. I don't think it's unsafe for them to actually be driving. And so people are like, oh, it's going too fast even for teens. It's like, no, I mean, they're going max like 30. That's nothing. That's just like, I don't know. I think there's like bikes that go faster than this. I don't think the problem is the speed. And I agree. It's like, it's good that it teaches them responsibility as well as like taking care of a car, like putting gas. Also, like they have to probably earn money somehow to like put gas in their cars. So it is like, it's good, you know, it teaches them responsibility and they have to like be aware of like what's happening and I don't know, check the air in the tires and check the oil. I don't know, like stuff that responsibility in general. And also it teaches them how to drive in like a very, you know, you're going slow, but I think ultimately you're going to have to drive, right? So, you know, you have to know the rules of driving and you also have to park and you have to go places. And again, it's like, it's good. However, my problem with this is like good for them. I will absolutely agree, love this. But when it comes to the other, you know, if I'm thinking of this as a like if I'm a teen, I would love this. But as in like another, if I'm a driver and that's it, it would be so incredibly annoying to be like behind one of these like little cars. I would be like, oh my god, take them out of the road. Like I can't stand it. I can't imagine, like, I would get so much, like, road rage just, like, driving behind that. Because, again, if it happens one time, it's like, okay, it's normal, like, it can happen. But I can't imagine living in a place where, like, this is, like, this constant. Like, if you're apparently, because I don't know how common they are in places like Stockholm, maybe, or, like, the bigger cities, that you know, because it's like in the countryside, right? So if you live in one of those like a little bit far away places, or you live in a place with like a lot of farms in a city with like it's a lot of farmers, and you have to constantly deal with this, I would get like so incredibly mad about this. I would be like, no, I'm changing the law myself. Like, tell me who to call, what representative to call. I'll go to the Congress because I cannot live like this. So I think like other drivers are the ones that are like, no, this sucks because it's like it's harming us as a society. Maybe they should like do their own like roads for them, but I know that it would be impossible. Like we can't create a road for teens and for them to like play with this like little toy cars. But oh my god, it's like maybe it should be allowed maybe during certain hours. Maybe that would be like, right, like, I don't know how possible this is. I'm thinking out loud. Maybe that would be like, or maybe during the weekends, or I don't know, just like restrict the hours in which you can, and which these cars can circulate. Although I get, then they're gonna be like, oh my god, I go to school. It's like, well, maybe better the public transport system there. Like, you should have public transportation. Although I get, you know, especially with teens, it's like, oh, I don't want to take the bus. Like, I want my own car. So they would be probably upset about this, and they would be like, no, if I have a car and have a usable vehicle, why can't I use this? It's like, yes, probably they're just ashamed and they don't want to take the bus because it's annoying, and you just want to take your car because, of course, you're a teen and you want the freedom of like, I can go anywhere. But on one hand, like, again, it's a good idea, but at the same time, it should be restricted. I just like, I can't stop thinking about the other drivers. They're gonna be like, so it's gonna be like such an annoying thing that I can't. I would get so much road rage. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. I have to say, like, even though it is, it's a very funny concept of the whole, the whole like 8 truck situation, because it's like, oh, they're very, it speaks well of like the Swedish society that they're like making up the best that what we can, what we have with what we can with what we have. It's good at how it came to be, and people were like, yes, and it explains a lot. But I don't know how, like, I get the sense of, obviously back in those days, it was, it was an actual thing that we have to use because it's a necessity. That is just a fashion. Like, again, even though I'm saying like it's practical and I like them and it's a good thing for our teens, but at the same time, like, I'm aware this is like a fashion thing, it's a trend thing, because it's not out of like, it's a necessity thing. Maybe just change the law and allow teens as young as 14 or 15 to actually drive. Wouldn't that be better? And you get rid of like this whole system. Or maybe they have like speeding limits, like maybe, but not 30, but maybe like 50 or 60, like something a little bit more normal. Maybe that would be actually a good, like, change the law. And the 8 trucks are not, it's not they're forbidden, but I would maybe phase them out. Like, you can't register like new ones. I like the one that it was like in a couple of years, well, in a few like time, in a specific time period, it was like you can't register like new trucks, 8 trucks, but you can just, the ones that you have, well, sure, and we'll phase them out eventually, because it's like cars that are going, prices that are going, like, they're switching to electric cars. And it's a thing of like, we're progressively making the switch. So it's like, no, you can't actually. It's a process. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's like, yes, eventually they'll be phased out, because once the car's like, oh, it's garbage. Like, your car will not turn on anymore. Like, there's no saving your car. So it's like, well, this car, I don't know if I'm a little like skeptical about calling the cars. It's like more vehicles. It's a vehicle. I know the vehicle technically is a car, but I don't know. It's just like, it's a weird car. So maybe let's call them vehicles, because it's like, cars I think can be safe up to a certain point. So maybe vehicles will be the right term, especially because, they have like a whole thing of like, they're not like a normal car. They do things to it. So, I don't know, maybe phase them out eventually. But the whole thing about like, doing like BMWs and Porsches, like that's I think that should be forbidden, because there's like luxury cars, especially like Porsche. Why are you doing that to your car? Like, maybe, and if it's like an old car and you're like, wow, it was to the dumpster, like, I saved it. It's like, oh, but wow, could you have saved it and just like drive the Porsche normally, and just like, you don't have to go through all this trouble of like converting this into an 8-truck, because apparently they were doing like, they had to do a lot of things to actually convert like this into one of those vehicle types. Like, there was like a thing with the transmission, and you had to like take out the rear seats. That absolutely makes sense to me, because trucks do not have, it's not like, yeah, guys, jump in, I have like a six seat car. No, of course not. It's like, it should be similar to a truck. And of course, like, but having this, and I'm like, oh yes, I'm saying all of this and stuff. But let's face it, like, in this day and age, I'm pretty sure like farmer equipment, I don't know how expensive it is, but I'm pretty sure like farmers in this day and age can probably afford like trucks and sort of like equipment. So the need to actually own this kind of things, again, it's just like a trendy thing, but I wouldn't say it's like it's a necessity, because farmers that actually like, yeah, I have a farm or I work in a farm, they can just afford to buy the actual vehicle that's made for the farm. You don't need to like go through all this trouble, because I get it that, yes, how it started, yes, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, now there's like no need for this. Like, the pricing of the stuff like has gone down, and now it's affordable. People in this, in this realm, like, can definitely afford this. So there's like absolutely no need of this. So it's like it's just like trendy. Maybe they just need to look for another trend, and that's it. And they'll just like phase out these cars. Because again, I can't keep like thinking of the other all the other drivers. It's gonna be so incredibly annoying. I think one time you'll be like, oh, how weird, ha ha. Look how weird with a car. Maybe you take a picture and you're like, oh, so funny. Look at them. But then after it happens like for the third time that week, I think you'll just start thinking, wow, this is not funny anymore. Like I've had it actually. But I like actually, besides taking all the practical stuff out of this, I do appreciate and I do like that apparently they put stickers and so like personalized. I think it's very cool. And also just like old cars in general. I think I like them and it would be my dream to actually own and drive one of those cars. Not the H-Trucks, but the older cars. It would be awesome, especially like they showed, I think it was like a pink Cadillac. I don't know if it was a Cadillac, a Mustang, but it was pink. It was beautiful. I would love to own one of those cars. It would be a dream to me. But I don't think they're very common. I don't know how practical they are, and I think actually it takes probably more maintenance than a normal car. Especially I think because older cars can't go like any faster. Maybe you can switch the engine and put a new engine on one of those cars, and you can get like best of both worlds. I don't know, no idea about cars. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.